It started with whispers, sideways glances from neighbors, hushed conversations at the grocery store, and judgmental stares at the playground. When Emily first walked into town with baby Noah in her arms, she could feel the weight of every unspoken thought. She was used to being noticed. Her warm smile and kind heart made her well-liked in the community. But this was different. People weren't admiring. They were questioning. Emily had always dreamed of being a mother, but life hadn't gone the way she expected. After years of heartbreak and failed attempts to conceive, she made a decision that felt right in her heart: adoption. She didn't care about skin color, background, or the opinions of others. She only knew one thing. When she first held Noah, her son, in her arms, it was as if the missing piece of her life had finally fallen into place. But not everyone saw it that way. The comments started subtly at first, masked behind forced smiles. "Oh, he's adorable. Where is he from?" Some would ask, with curiosity laced in a way that made it clear they weren't just interested. They were judging. Others weren't as discreet. "Why didn't you adopt a child who looks like you?" "A white woman raising a black boy. That's going to be tough. He's going to struggle with his identity." Emily brushed off the negativity, holding on to the love she had for Noah. But as the years went by, the scrutiny only grew. When Noah started school, the judgment intensified. Some parents didn't want their children having playdates at Emily's house. Teachers often assumed things about Noah before getting to know him. He was either so well-spoken as if they expected otherwise, or they were quick to assume he would be a troublemaker. No matter how hard Emily tried to shield him, Noah could sense it too. One day, when he was about 8, he came home and asked, "Mom, why don't I look like you?" His innocent question stung. Emily sat him down and told him the truth, that families are built on love, not just appearances. That no matter what anyone said, he was her son and she was his mother. But deep down, she worried. Would he grow up resenting her? Would the world's perception of them drive a wedge between them? As Noah grew, so did the challenges. When he hit his teenage years, he began to understand the full weight of the world's judgment. He heard the whispers behind his back, the assumptions people made about him, the way some looked at Emily as if she had done something wrong by loving him. There were moments of anger, frustration, and questioning. But there was also an unbreakable bond between them. Emily never stopped believing in her son. She encouraged him to chase his dreams, no matter how impossible they seemed. And Noah. He had big dreams. He worked hard, studied even harder, and refused to let the opinions of others define him. Then one day, everything changed. Years passed, and the same people who had doubted Emily's choice, who had mocked her for adopting Noah, who had whispered behind her back, those same people were left in shock. Because the boy they once judged had grown into someone they never expected. And when the town finally saw who Noah had become, they couldn't believe their eyes. But by then, it was too late. Noah had always known he was different. Not just because of the way people looked at him when he was with his mother, but because of the unspoken barriers he had to navigate as he grew older. At school, he was often the only black student in his class. Teachers would hesitate before calling on him, and when they did, it was usually to make a point. "Noah, what do you think about this?" They'd ask when discussing race, as if he was supposed to have all the answers. Some kids were kind, but others, influenced by their parents, weren't so subtle. When he was 10, a classmate sneered at him during recess. "You don't belong with her," the boy had said, nodding toward Emily, who was waiting at the gate to pick him up. "She's not your real mom." Noah had clenched his fists, confusion and anger swirling inside him. He didn't know how to respond. Emily had told him love made a family, but at that moment, love didn't stop the sting of those words. At home, Emily could see the hurt in his eyes before he even spoke. She knelt beside him, brushing his curls from his forehead. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" she asked gently. He hesitated before repeating what the boy had said. Emily sighed, pulling him into a hug. "People will always have opinions, Noah," she said softly. "But their opinions don't define us. We define who we are." It was a lesson Noah would carry with him, though it wouldn't always be easy. As he got older, the challenges became more complex. In middle school, he began to notice how differently he was treated compared to his friends. Store clerks watched him more closely when he walked into shops. If he wore a hoodie, people crossed the street. He heard whispers about that adopted black boy, and no matter how hard he worked, he always felt like he had something to prove. Emily saw it all. She saw the frustration in his eyes when people assumed things about him before they even knew his name. She saw the way he tensed when a police officer passed by, even though he had done nothing wrong. She wanted to protect him, but she knew she couldn't shield him from everything. Instead, she gave him the tools to stand strong. "You are intelligent, kind, and hardworking," she would remind him. "Never let anyone make you feel like you're less than that." Noah pushed himself harder than anyone. He threw himself into his studies, determined to break every expectation placed on him. He stayed up late studying, waking up early to run drills for the sports teams he joined. He didn't just want to succeed, he needed to. Not just for himself, but to prove that he was more than what people assumed. But no matter how much he achieved, there were still people who doubted him. His high school guidance counselor tried to steer him toward trade school, despite his perfect grades. "College is expensive," she said, her tone laced with something Noah couldn't quite place. "Maybe you should consider a more practical path." Emily, however, wouldn't hear of it. She marched into the school the next day, her voice steady but firm. "My son has a 4.0 GPA and leadership experience. He can go anywhere he wants," she said, her eyes meeting the counselor's without flinching. "And he will." Noah applied to the top universities in the country. The day the first acceptance letter came, he held it in shaking hands, barely able to breathe. He had done it. But the challenges weren't over yet. The whispers in town had never stopped. People still doubted him, still looked at Emily as if she had made a mistake by choosing him. What they didn't know was that the biggest moment of his life was just around the corner. And when it came, they would be left speechless. Noah's acceptance into a top university was supposed to be his victory, his proof that he had defied the doubts and whispers. But the moment he stepped onto campus, he realized the battle was far from over. The stares, the assumptions, the unspoken expectations, they followed him even here. Professors who barely looked at him during lectures, students who seemed surprised when he spoke with confidence, and the ever-present question, "So what sport do you play?" As if his achievements had to be tied to something physical rather than intellectual. Emily had always told him to keep his head high, to let his actions speak louder than the judgments. But some days, it was exhausting. He had worked harder than anyone he knew, yet he still had to prove he belonged. His first semester was a test of resilience. He studied late into the night, pushing himself past exhaustion, determined to graduate at the top of his class. He joined student organizations, not just to fit in, but to change the conversations around him. Despite the struggles, Noah found allies in unexpected places. His economics professor, Dr. Caldwell, noticed his sharp insights in class and invited him to a small mentorship group. "You have a mind built for problem solving," the professor told him one afternoon. "Don't let the noise around you distract from that." Those words became a lifeline on the hardest days. But there was another challenge brewing, one that went beyond the quiet struggles of belonging. Back in his hometown, the whispers about Emily and Noah had never really stopped. The same people who had mocked her for adopting him years ago now watched with skepticism as news of his success spread. They had doubted him before. Now some refused to believe it at all. "He's probably getting special treatment," one of the men at the diner muttered to a friend. "No way he got in on his own." Others weren't so subtle. A letter arrived at Emily's house, unsigned, filled with cruel words about how she had wasted her life raising a boy who would never be one of them. She didn't show it to Noah, but he saw the way her hands trembled as she set it down. One evening, as Noah sat in his dorm room, his phone buzzed with a message from an old classmate back home. "You're all over town news," it read. He clicked the link and felt his stomach tighten. A local paper had published an article about him, highlighting his achievements, but the comment section below was filled with doubt and resentment. Affirmative action at work. Bet he won't last a year. He'll forget all about his mom when he makes it big. Noah clenched his jaw, the words stinging more than he wanted to admit. He had thought leaving home would mean leaving the judgment behind, but it had only followed him in a different form. He called Emily that night. "Why do they care so much?" he asked, frustration thick in his voice. "I've never asked them for anything. Why do they still want to tear me down?" Emily sighed on the other end of the line. "Because your success challenges everything they believed. People don't like to be wrong." Noah knew she was right, but that didn't make it easier. He was tired of fighting, tired of proving. And yet, deep down, he knew quitting wasn't an option. If anything, he had more to fight for now than ever. As the months passed, he poured himself into his studies even harder. He earned a competitive internship at a major firm, something that put him on a path far beyond what anyone back home could have imagined. But the more he achieved, the louder the doubts grew. And then, just when he thought he had seen it all, an unexpected message arrived. One that would change everything. Noah stared at the email, his heart pounding. The subject line was simple. Asterisk asterisk, we need to talk. Asterisk asterisk, it was from a name he hadn't seen in years, Michael Reynolds. One of the boys who had mocked him growing up. One of the loudest voices in the chorus of doubt. He hesitated before opening it. What could Michael possibly want after all these years? He clicked. Asterisk, hey Noah, I know this is out of nowhere, but I've been following your journey. I saw the article about you, and honestly, I never thought you'd make it this far. None of us did. We were wrong about you. But there's something else. I need to talk to you. It's about your mother. It's important. Call me. Asterisk. Noah reread the message, his pulse quickening. Asterisk asterisk what about Emily asterisk asterisk? He hadn't spoken to Michael in years, and now he was suddenly bringing up his mother. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. Asterisk asterisk was this some kind of joke asterisk asterisk? Instead of replying, he called Emily right away. She answered on the second ring, her voice calm but tired. "Hey, sweetheart," she said. "Everything okay?" "Mom, I just got an email from Michael Reynolds. He said he needed to talk to me about you. Do you know what this is about?" There was silence on the other end. It stretched on too long. "Mom?" A shaky breath. Then finally, I was hoping this wouldn't come up yet. Noah felt his chest tighten. "What do you mean? What's going on?" Emily hesitated, as if choosing her words carefully. "I didn't want to burden you with this while you were in school. But things have been difficult here. The letters, the phone calls, some people are angry about your success. And now there's talk that someone is trying to dig into our past. I don't know what they're looking for, but I didn't want you to worry." Noah's jaw clenched. Asterisk asterisk why hadn't she told him asterisk asterisk? He had thought leaving town would mean leaving the small-minded judgment behind. But it was still there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. "I need to come home," he said. "No, Noah, you don't." "I do. If something's happening, I need to be there." She sighed, defeated. "All right, but just be careful." The next morning, Noah boarded a flight back home. His mind raced the entire trip. Asterisk asterisk what was Michael talking about? What was happening back in town asterisk asterisk? When he arrived, Emily was waiting at the airport, her eyes filled with both relief and worry. She hugged him tight, holding on longer than usual. "You didn't have to come so soon," she murmured. "I did." He pulled back, studying her face. "Tell me everything." As they drove home, she finally opened up. The letters had become more frequent. The stares at the grocery store had turned into whispered conversations. Someone had even called her workplace, questioning whether she had lied about how she adopted Noah. It was absurd, but in a town where people thrived on gossip, it had taken on a life of its own. When they got home, Noah opened his laptop and, after a deep breath, typed a reply to Michael. Asterisk I'm in town. Where can we meet? Asterisk. Minutes later, his phone buzzed. A new message. Asterisk meet me at the old park. 7 p.m. asterisk. The pit in Noah's stomach grew. Asterisk asterisk what was Michael so desperate to say asterisk asterisk? That evening, as he walked to the park, the sky was darkening, the air thick with the weight of something unseen. Michael was already there, leaning against a bench, hands stuffed in his pockets. He looked different, older, wearier. "Noah," he said, standing up as he approached. Noah crossed his arms. "What's this about?" Michael exhaled sharply, rubbing the back of his neck. "Look, I know I was a jerk to you back in the day. I won't make excuses. But this isn't about that. It's about your mom." "Get to the point," Noah said, impatience creeping into his voice. Michael hesitated, then pulled out his phone. He tapped a few times and turned the screen toward Noah. "Someone's been digging into your adoption, and they found something." Noah's stomach dropped as he read the words on the screen. Asterisk asterisk it changed everything asterisk asterisk. Noah's eyes locked onto the phone screen, his breath caught in his throat. The words staring back at him didn't make sense. It was an old document, a legal file, but something about it felt off, wrong. He scanned the text, his heart pounding louder with each passing second. Asterisk adoption records, sealed. Biological mother, unknown. Further investigation required. Asterisk. He looked up at Michael, his hands tightening into fists. "What is this?" Michael hesitated, shifting uncomfortably. "I don't know everything, man. But someone in town does, and they're trying to bring it to light." Noah felt his chest tighten. He had never questioned his adoption. Emily was his mother in every way that mattered. She had given him love, safety, a home. But this document, this hint that something had been hidden, made his mind race with questions he wasn't sure he wanted answers to. "Who's behind this?" Noah's voice was low, almost a whisper. Michael glanced around the park, as if afraid they were being watched. Then he said a name Noah hadn't heard in years. "Pastor James." Noah felt a cold shiver run through him. Pastor James had been one of the loudest voices of disapproval when Emily adopted him. A man who believed things should stay the way they always had been. Why would he care about this now? Michael lowered his voice. "I don't know what he found, but I heard he's been talking. To reporters, to lawyers. He wants something exposed. And if he's right, it's big." Noah's mind spun. He thought about Emily, about the sacrifices she had made to raise him in a town that never accepted them. And now, after all these years, someone wanted to rewrite his story. He stepped back, shaking his head. No, this doesn't make sense. There's nothing to expose. My mom adopted me legally. That's it. Michael sighed. I thought so too. But ask yourself this, why were your adoption records sealed? Noah's throat went dry. He had never thought about it before. He had never needed to. Without another word, he turned and walked away, his mind racing. He needed to talk to Emily. When he got home, she was waiting in the kitchen, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. The way she looked at him, it was like she already knew what he was going to ask. Mom, he said, his voice unsteady. Why are my adoption records sealed? She closed her eyes for a moment, inhaling deeply. When she opened them again, there was something behind them, something Noah had never seen before. Noah, there's something I should have told you a long time ago. The air between them grew heavy. Noah's pulse raced. Emily set the mug down and folded her hands in her lap. Your adoption, it wasn't as simple as I made it seem. Noah took a step closer, his hands clenched at his sides. What do you mean? She hesitated. Your biological mother, she didn't give you up willingly. The room seemed to tilt. Noah's breath caught. Emily's voice was soft but firm. She was in trouble, no. She was young, scared, and she wanted to keep you. But someone made sure she couldn't. A chill ran down Noah's spine. Who? Emily's lips parted, but before she could answer, a loud knock at the door made them both jump. Noah turned sharply. Emily's face paled. The knocking came again, harder this time. Noah glanced at his mother before striding toward the door. He pulled it open, expecting Michael, maybe even Pastor James. Instead, a tall man in a dark suit stood there, a serious expression on his face. Noah Carter? The man asked. Noah swallowed. Yeah. The man reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope. You've been served. Noah stared at it, his mind racing. His hands shook as he took it, his breath coming in short, sharp bursts. He looked at Emily. Her face had gone pale, her eyes wide with something he could only describe as fear. His fingers trembled as he opened the envelope and pulled out the papers inside. And then he saw it. A lawsuit, filed against Emily Carter. The reason? ***, unlawful, adoption ***. Noah's hands trembled as he gripped the papers, his eyes darting over the words again and again. It felt impossible, unreal. His mother, the woman who had loved him, raised him, given him everything, was being accused of something unthinkable. He looked up at Emily, searching for answers, but all he saw was the pain in her eyes. She stood slowly, swallowing hard. Noah, listen to me. This isn't what it looks like. Then tell me what it is. Noah said, his voice hoarse. Because right now, it looks like someone is saying you took me when you had no right to. Emily's lips quivered, but she steadied herself. I never stole you, Noah. I saved you. The words hung in the air, thick and heavy. Noah could feel his pulse in his ears. Saved me. From who? Emily exhaled sharply, rubbing her hands together as if trying to warm them. Your birth mother was young, scared, and being forced to give you up. I couldn't let that happen. Noah's heart pounded. Who forced her? Emily hesitated, and then barely above a whisper, she said her family. Everything inside him tightened. He had imagined his biological mother 1,000 times, maybe as a woman who had been too young, too overwhelmed to raise him. But he had never imagined that she had wanted to keep him, and couldn't. Emily continued, her voice fragile yet unwavering. She was barely 18, Noah. Her family wanted to send her away, erase the shame. She begged me to take you before they could force her to sign the papers. She wanted you safe. Noah swallowed hard, his world shifting beneath him. Why didn't you ever tell me? Emily blinked rapidly, tears pooling in her eyes. Because I thought I was protecting you. And because I didn't know if she ever wanted to be found. The air in the room was suffocating. Noah could barely process what he was hearing. But before he could ask another question, another knock sounded at the door, this time softer, hesitant. Noah's breath caught as he turned toward it. Emily's expression tightened with something he couldn't name. Slowly, he reached for the handle and pulled the door open. A woman stood there. Her face was older, lined with time and sorrow, but her eyes, those eyes were unmistakable. Because they were his. "Noah," she whispered. His breath hitched. "I'm your mother." Everything around him blurred. His chest felt too tight, his mind too slow to catch up. "You," his voice cracked. "You're alive." Tears slipped down her face as she nodded. "I never stopped looking for you." A storm of emotions crashed inside him, shock, anger, disbelief, longing. He turned back to Emily, who was now quietly crying. "I never knew," Emily murmured. I thought staying away was what she wanted." His birth mother stepped forward. "They told me you was gone," she said softly. "That I had no choice." Her voice broke, but I never gave up. Noah felt his legs weaken. This truth, this secret buried for years, had unraveled everything he thought he knew. He turned back to Emily, the woman who had raised him, loved him, fought for him. Then to the woman who had brought him into this world and had never stopped searching. Two mothers, both had lost, both had fought. Both had loved him in their own way. Noah inhaled shakily. What happens now? His birth mother wiped her tears, her lips trembling into a hopeful smile. "That's up to you." And in that moment, Noah realized this wasn't about choosing one over the other. It was about finally knowing the truth and deciding what to do with it. Noah stood frozen between the two women, his heart pounding. For years, he had believed his story was simple. He was an abandoned child, adopted by a woman with a heart big enough to love him as her own. Now everything had changed. He had two mothers, both of who had fought for him in different ways. And now he had to figure out what that meant. Emily wiped her eyes, trying to steady herself. "Noah, I know this is a lot," she said softly. "But no matter what happens next, you are my son. That has never changed, and it never will." His birth mother, Ava, watched him carefully, as if afraid he might disappear. "I don't want to take anything from you," she whispered. "I just wanted you to know the truth, and to know that I never stopped loving you." Noah felt the weight of their words pressing down on him. He had spent so much of his life wondering about his past, but he never imagined that knowing the truth would feel this overwhelming. He took a slow breath and finally spoke. "I don't know what to do," he admitted. This is huge." Ava nodded. "Take your time. I just want the chance to know you." Emily reached out and touched his arm gently. "And I want you to have that chance too." For the first time since opening that door, Noah felt a small sense of relief. There was no rush to make a decision, no pressure to pick one life over another. He had time. Over the next few weeks, he met with Ava more and more. They talked about her life, about the years she spent searching for him. She told him stories about the dreams she had for him, about the guilt that never left her. And Noah found himself slowly opening up, realizing that there was a part of him that had been waiting to hear her voice his entire life. But his bond with Emily didn't change. If anything, it grew stronger. Because even as he connected with his past, he saw more clearly than ever what she had done for him. How she had given him love, stability, and a future when she didn't have to. He saw the sacrifices, the strength it had taken to raise him in a world that judged her for her choices. One evening, as they sat together at the kitchen table, Noah finally found the words he had been searching for. "Mom," he said, looking at Emily, "thank you." Emily smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. "For what?" "For everything," he said simply. "For giving me a life where I always felt wanted." Tears welled in her eyes, but this time they were happy ones. "You don't have to thank me for that, Noah. I would do it all over again in a heartbeat." A few days later, Noah stood outside a small cafe, waiting for Ava. He had spent so much time questioning what this new chapter meant, but now he felt something different: peace. When Ava arrived, she hesitated before speaking. "I was scared you wouldn't come," she admitted. Noah smiled. "I told you, I'm not going anywhere." She let out a shaky breath, then reached into her bag and pulled out an old photograph. It was worn, edges curling from years of being held. She handed it to him. "This was taken the day you were born," she said. Noah stared at the image, his tiny body wrapped in a hospital blanket. Ava's tired but loving eyes looking down at him. He traced the edges with his fingers, feeling an unexpected warmth spread through him. For the first time, he saw the full picture. He was not just the son who had been given up. He was not just the boy who had been adopted. He was both. Looking up at Ava, he gave her a small smile. "Maybe we should take a new picture, one with both of my moms." Ava's breath caught, and for a moment, she couldn't speak. But then she nodded, her smile breaking through the tears. Noah knew the past couldn't be changed. But the future, that was his to create. And for the first time, he was ready.